Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet, and today we're in this curious period where I don't have enough Short Funk backup topics, so I'm literally recording these Short Funks live. In fact, I'm recording this Short Funk on the day that I'm going to release it, which is never the case usually with Short Funk. Topic that I've wanted to talk about, and talked about periodically through Short Funk, is associated with using simulation methodology in understanding, real-world interactions. And it's something that I use quite frequently, and I try to describe to others, and have varying degrees of success. But one of the things that I do, which comes from Noble Ape, in fact, it predates in development of Noble Ape, but it was something certainly that affected my thinking heavily with Noble Ape. And when Bob Mottram finally implemented it in Noble Ape, it was just like icing on the top. Shout-outs to Bob Mottram. It's the idea that humans will simulate interactions with other humans in order to create a set of possibilities in the interaction. When I come to conflict situations, but also situations that I need to resolve internally, I like to do this kind of little internal simulation thing where you pose the other person or the group of people that you're interacting with, and you try to create some degree of resolution within your own kind of these people playing characters and your role as a character and what do you say in these circumstances. One of the most interesting things about this, I don't know what one would call it, like philosophical methodology, for want of a better term, is that you can rarely enact change in other people. In fact, you really need to understand that quite fundamentally when you come to this mode of thought analysis. It's very easy, actually, to resolve a wide variety of situations through this associated with external parties that will never actually be resolved for the external parties. And although you might feel quite comfortable associated with your resolution of the circumstances, the external parties will continue to be who these external parties are. Oftentimes, particularly at points of conflict, irrespective of what you've been able to resolve internally, the external party may not actually want to resolve these issues. They may want to either exacerbate the conflict or, you have circumstances where one person will have one set of views that they're going to be unchangeable in, another person will have another set of views that they're going to be unchangeable in, and basically these views may not in any way commensurate with one another, and you probably are in a circumstance of either flight or fight in these kind of interactions. And in these kind of simulation interactions, I typically use this as a defining point associated with my fight or my flight characteristics. Like, if this occurs, then this is clearly a point of flight. And what I find particularly in adult life is that my fight characteristics are slightly higher, particularly when I want to get additional information. There is information that you can actually get out of conflict, which is rather curious because I'm typically non-confrontational in any way, shape or form. But there are some points of conflict where you can get additional information that is actually long-term beneficial. And I've moved periodically through my life, and sometimes I've moved because of actual individuals in my life. I've realized that there's no way that I can resolve things with this person. This person, if I don't do anything, is going to continue to be an impact in my life. So I just have to move. And it's an interesting outcome of doing this kind of mental simulation where you simulate the other person, these kind of things, that you can come to these quite profound, in many circumstances, life-changing revelations just by doing this internal simulation. So to conclude this somewhat rambling Short Funk, if you do participate in this means of, understanding the world, firstly, appreciate that the actual circumstances that you'll get yourself in are considerably more dynamic than you can probably ever internally simulate, particularly if the external party has no interest in, agreeing with you or being pleasant. And oftentimes I use, in these circumstances, or at least in reflection of these circumstances, kind of boundary drawing positions through this. And returning to the original point that I made, you can do all these beautiful internal simulations all you want, but you're never actually going to change an external entity. You could try to find common ground points that you could at least return to in places of confrontation or these kind of things. But in general, it's usually better as a means of exploring strategies and actually testing the external world. Actually testing how close was your simulation to the actual experiences when they occurred, and basically making adjustments based on that. Anyway, a relatively abstract Short Funk recording, just to put some of my philosophical stuff associated with simulation into the applied world. Tom Barbalet in San Jose, signing out.